Hello, everyone, and welcome to this spooky episode of the Cup Duet Reviews. My name is Jillian Robinson. I am the Associate Artistic Producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre. I am joined by my colleague, one of our co-artistic producers, Mackenzie Horner. Mackenzie, how are you doing?
Jill, I want to suck your blood.
So you are doing just fine and ready and amped and vamped
Absolutely.
to unpack Eve of St. George. This is a production happening by the TranscenDance Project. It's happening here in Toronto at the Great Hall. And it is a short run, but it is a revival of the show, has updated scenes, etc., from a previous production. So yeah, Mac and I had the opportunity to see their first performance last night. It only goes up at the Great Hall until February 24th. So we are going to get this
just till
episode
Saturday
out. Exactly. And friends, you are not going to want to miss this. But before we dive too far into the dark, seductive ambiance of this piece, let's do our usual icebreaker. Mac, what are you sipping with us today?
Well, Jill, in honor of tonight's episode, I have a lovely blackberry raspberry crystal light that I am drinking. There's some nice bloody red. Yes. What about you?
So I have in a little flute. I also have some crystallized beverage. I believe this is strawberry. It's not as red and blood-like as I would like it to be. But yeah, and I have some backup. And I also just have some water because hydration station, water, not blood.
100%.
Yeah, and my ensemble, I guess I'll mention some of these
episodes.
Yes,
so what is your ensemble?
We do. I have this sort of bustier lingerie piece that was kind of the same flavor as our Mistress of Ceremonies and Vampire Brides, which we'll get into. And I am wearing, but I am going to remove, just so I'm not wearing it throughout the entire episode, but this was the masks that we were all asked to don as patrons. So I thought I would kind of come in, costume, and now I'm Jill. Now we're able to get down to business. Great. So Mac, like I said, this was Eve of St. George. This is done by TranscenDance Project. You and I chatted about their production, A Grim Night. We did an episode on it a while back. And TranscenDance Project is like an immersive dance theatrical extravaganza. Yes. And it's done at the Great Hall. So folks who have been to the Great Hall or know about the Great Hall, it is this gorgeous stunning, open venue. It's used for also like weddings. There's like a ballroom area. There's front rooms. There's like a basement. Corridor. So TranscenDance really does shapeshift this entire space to tell a story through immersive dance theater. And this is Eve of St. George, which is an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So, So those of you who don't know about Dracula, I encourage you to, look up a synopsis, do a little Spark Notes vibe, because Mac and I
Have you read the book, Jill?
I have not. I've seen play adaptations of it, but yeah, I've never read the book. Ryan, on the other hand, of Cup of Hemlock, he actually signed up. You can read, because the book, for folks that don't know, are told, basically the chapters are told through letters or diary entries of our characters. So Ryan signed up for this thing where to correlate to the actual day of a year, you can read a letter or an entry that's dated that way. So for about a year, he got like Dracula installments sent to his email, which was cool. Which I'm probably going to do now because it just was really cool when he was doing it.
Yes.
But yeah, so look up a synopsis of Dracula, because we don't want to dive into that here. We will get into some plot points past the spoiler alert.
Absolutely.
But as someone like Mac, because you haven't read it either, right?
No, I've read it.
Oh, you've read it just growing some time. Okay.
I went on a whole like gothic horror binge.
Amazing.
I did Hunchback, Frankenstein, Dracula. I then saw the Princess Ford Coppola, Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder adaptation that was done in the 90s. So
great.
But it'd been a long time since I'd really I remembered all the plot points. I remembered like elements of it. Like I remembered certain characters like Renfield, who's like eating the bugs. I remembered his character because he's such a very vivid character that you remember. Same thing with what happens with the character of Lucy. and her fate. I remembered that element of it. And then of course Gary Oldman and Christopher Lee and so many great actors have played the role of Dracula. I mean the original guy who did it in the original adaptation was Bela Lugosi back in 1931, and he was like the original Count Dracula, but he has spawned from since. And then of course you have Nosferatu. So Dracula's always been around, way better than Twilight.
Through pop culture, we've all absorbed the bloody tale. But I will say, because I haven't been in close proximity to the story in a while, part of my experience, I feel, was enriched of me sort of re-remembering plot points. So that's why outside of the spoiler zone, we are going to just encourage you to look up facts, but also if you want to just show up to the show and be gobsmacked and remember facts, that's also a wonderful opportunity. So just to kind of glaze through what the night entails. So you show up to the Great Hall, you're given some goodies, which again, we'll get into in spoiler alert. And it is 90 minutes of you are tossed around the building wherever you
at your own discretion.
At your own discretion. You can follow certain characters. You can stay in a room for as long as you'd like. And you are exposed to bits of this adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And it's an immersive theatrical dance experience. So it is very dance heavy, movement based. This one, it was very intimate and sort of seductive.
Sultry.
And sultry. So it really was a spectacular evening of being engulfed into this dark, fogged ambiance. So Mac, why don't we just chat a little bit before we head into spoiler zone about some appraisals, some cast members that maybe stood out to you, some moments or instances you want to chat about. That
I have my program here,
so I can.
First off, we have to give a big shout out to the creative team behind this.
Yes.
Particularly Julia Cratchley, who, once again, she is the person who spearheads these pieces, puts them, brings all the team together, has her wonderful team of dancers, and she has different fight directors and intimacy coordinators, but she's the one that really pulls it all together. And she was the one throughout the whole night who had her earbud in so she could communicate with stage management. And she's just such a, once again, she's done both Grim Night and Eva St. George are very dark things, but she's just like a ray of light and
amazing.
So welcoming to everybody who comes into this space. And it's just so goes with the flow of the night. Like she's someone who's, just willing to go anywhere and everywhere with the audience. And so I just got to give a shout out to her because she is the one that is really driving and spearheading this piece. And I would love to see her do even more of this because there's so many source materials you could pull from, whether whether or not you want to go back to the Greeks and the Romans and do one of their, like Oedipus if you wanted to, or, you could do a Shakespeare or another literary book, or Jill, as you said, you love to see like a Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility type story done. So she just has such a mind for this, and I think it's such a unique voice that we have here in Toronto that we need to get her as much support as possible so they can keep doing this great work. Within the cast, I have a few. I want to give a shout out to Joey Argio. Joey portrayed the role of Renfield, and they were absolutely terrific. Last time, I believe they were the evil fairy.
Or evil queen.
Evil queen, evil fairy type character. And this time around, they're playing, who I went home and restudied the character again, but basically, Renfield is a member of the insane asylum, Dr. Seward's patient, who is being used by the Count as kind of like a pawn, basically, to help him get Minna to be his next bride. So basically, but they are just so physical. And the fact that they are literally in nothing, like they just owns the fact that they were literally naked, almost down to his underwear for a good chunk. And there's one point where they are doing a fight scene in a very small, intimate space, and they just goes for it. And I was lucky enough to be paired up with them for the pre-show interaction.
Okay, great, yeah.
And so we'll get more to what happened in that pre-show interaction, but they were just so captivating to watch in their cage. So that was great. And the other person, other group I want to shout out is the Vampire Bride. So you have Elvira, which is a great kind of homage to, the old horror films. And that was Martha Hart. You have Hazel, played by Julia Castellano, and Zella, played by Kayla Wiley. And the three of them.
Apologies if we are mispronouncing any of your names as we go through. Yes.
But they, as a trio, and Martha's here behind me, are so captivating and sultry and slinky. That it's like, oh, like it's just, like there's almost like spiders or eels where they are just, or snake-like, where they're just always around you. And there's one point where they're using fabric to entice one of the audience members into their web. And it's just great. And Jill, I'm sure you have more to talk about that because you did get to do some more interactions with them. And they were wonderful. But just watching them doing some of their dances, like there's a great, very iconic scene from the book where Jonathan Harker is seduced by the three of them. And it's basically it's the three of them plus Connor, Jonathan. And just the movements they did just to simulate the orgy without actually, going full tilt for it. It's fascinating to watch. You know what I mean? I mean, to have such great power in female sexuality and not make it, through a male gaze, but really giving them their own agency and own energy was beautiful to watch. So I would definitely say Joey as Renfield, and then our wonderful trio of the Vampire Brides are my
amazing
shout out of the night. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of what you said. And to sort of pick up where you just lobbed that wonderful comment of, the sexuality in the female body in this piece was so titillating and like beautifully, grotesquely shown. So to kind of, I felt the exact same way about our Vampire Brides. And I want to shout out, as per usual, I'm a broken record, but I'm a massive fan of Kelly Shaw, who played Nina. So I've seen Kelly in Grim Night. So before we sort of dive into Kelly, a lot of these cast members were in a Grim Night that Mac and I had seen. So it was
kind of like a rep company.
Seeing them again in this and jigging around and playing different hits perhaps or different ages, which we'll get into, but probably throughout as well. But going back to Kelly, seeing her in a Grim Night and seeing her in Dees, a dance production that was done at Crow's Theatre recently, which we reviewed on the Cup as well. She has such anytime she dances, I don't need words. I don't need emotions. I don't need plot points. It is so enraptured in her physique and her precision and focus. So I had the opportunity in my tracks, and we'll get into that later, but I saw a lot of her solo work and also the work she does with Connor Mitten playing Jonathan Harker. Also,
as well as Jack as Dracula.
And Jack as Dracula, exactly. And she is such a force and she's so eloquent, but grotesque at the same time. I think every character or body she dances in displays humanity across the board. It's kind of hard to describe, but I get goosebumps and I just get emotional watching her work. So definitely want to shout out Kelly. I also want to shout out Jack Rennie, who played Dracula. So Jack, again, was Aurora's prince in Grim Night.
Yes, he was.
And Jack is also a fight choreographer himself. And he's popped up on a lot of shows that I've seen recently as fight director. And it's so lovely, seeing him in the titular role of Dracula, and also under Colleen Snell, who did the fight direction for this. And also played Dr. Seward.
Yeah.
So shout out to Colleen because this fight choreo was absolutely exquisite. So just want to say that there. But then, and Jack was the fight captain of this too, but just in a character that really does manipulate the other characters and always has to exude this is my domain. You're under my spell. There was just such a groundedness to him that, having seen him perform Aurora's Prince, which offered such a lighter sort of heroic quality, it was really lovely to see him in this grounded, deep, entrenched, opposite hit. So yeah, just kudos to Jack Rennie. Honestly, this entire cast was absolutely brilliant. I do want to shout out a friend of the Cup, Brie Clark, who was our nurse. And Bree, understudies. She's one of the understudies listed as well. Bree, we've also seen in Toes for Dance, which we've reviewed on the show. Bree is such a light and so phenomenal. And with this character of the nurse, like, she's a presence that we'll get into that's really a part of the pre-show, like a primal part of the pre-show. And then throughout the performance, she's sort of a liaison between characters. She's offering characters water for like practical purposes, probably too. But it was just lovely having her as like this focal point or this grounded force. I actually followed her a little bit just to kind of see her like tertiary track. And
she gets around a lot. Like, she's in a lot of different plots.
Definitely. But yeah, like, this whole team is phenomenal. And like, honestly, the best dancers in Toronto, especially from talking from a contemporary balletic point of view. Such lovely people too. Mac, you and I, when we met them after Crim Night, like, they're so open and beautiful. And again, hearkening back to Julia Cratchley, I think she's just a person that really helms such a phenomenal teams. And you can tell that she just infuses the space with what she wants, what her vision is, but you can feel from the actors that they're radiating their own vibes, their own interpretation. So it warms my heart to like feel and know that's the sort of collaboration that these massive undertaking projects go through. And to do immersive theater, and especially immersive dance theater, it's like you're doing 5 productions under one roof. And last night when we're recording this the day after, there was 120 patrons. So to be
some of them school students.
Exactly. So to be able to having to navigate smaller spaces or having to navigate scenes with maybe folks that don't go to theatrical events often, like, I just thought the whole team was so strong. And it is only happening at the Great Hall until February 24th, which will be the day after this episode comes out. But please go if you're not going already. And I really hope they bring this back. And I hope Julia just keeps helming these projects, because it is a part of immersive theater. You're seeing other companies start to take a stab at it. But this, again, it's even different than other companies, right? It's very dance heavy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to fund TranscenDance.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Great. I think we should go into spoiler zone, Matt.
Yes.
What do you think?
Let's put up the fangs, Jill.
Putting up the fangs. Amazing. Okay. First of all, I want to say with my drink, because I was going to say this, but I was like, oh no, might be a spoiler. So they had an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic version of cocktail, a cocktail and a mocktail, which I love because I personally don't drink. So I love that I was still able to get in on the action. And the names of them were so clever and delivered via a little syringe. So Dracula's Kiss was the alcoholic one. Yeah. Midnight Bite was the non-alcoholic.
Correct.
And both of them, were sort of
literally with syringes.
Made with a syringe. I just love those little details, right? So, and even Mac, when we walked in, our drink ticket was like a little message in a bottle, like
which happened in Grim Night as well. Yeah.
And then we got a little letter with Dracula's like wax stamp to figure out where we start exactly.
And this time we got to start together.
We did.
Because last time we were separated. We were in 2 different areas.
Yeah. So those are just little accoutrement things that I wanted to get into. But Mac, why don't we go through, I guess, actually, while we're on the elements of things, let's talk about like the different elements. So we've talked about how it's dance. You can choose your own adventure. You can follow your own character. A first element that let's unpack is this behind the curtain pre-show. Yes. So let us know. Why don't you talk about that? What we were given the opportunity to do.
I had Musica Domestica. So that meant I was taken downstairs, and I was taken downstairs by one of the kind of overseers of the night who assisted the mistress of ceremonies. And that performer's name was Chloe Relis. And they were wonderful. They were very good at, prompting you to where you had to go. I ended up downstairs with Renfield in their cage. Renfield was eating bugs.
Yeah.
Of some kind. Like, I don't know. Did you go into Renfield's cage?
I was outside of it. Like, I had peered into it throughout my journey, but I didn't get the opportunity or I didn't go in.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, I was put right in there, and like you were stepping on things that were crunching. And then
Okay.
they tried to feed me uh a bug, and I kept my mouth shut because I was like,
Oh,
no way am I eating a bug.
right. Which we did have
There is
the
a line.
opportunity to cross our chest
Yes.
if we didn't want to do
Very
anything
classic
that we're fighting.
Dracula
Right.
with the cross chest.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yes,
Great. So that was your trajectory.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then it was a lot of interactions with Renfield, having like kind of character discussions and stuff like that. It was all very well done.
Mhm.
Searching, kind of setting you up for the night there. But you ended up somewhere else entirely than me.
Yeah.
I was,
So again,
I was in the
yeah.
basement.
Yeah, so again, this was a sort of like a VIP opportunity. It wasn't offered
Hmm.
to everyone who had their ticket. But we were
Hmm.
brought up onto the stage
Yeah.
prior to, and Bree Clark was standing there as the nurse with this silver platter of name
Hmm.
slips that Mac just showed if you're watching this on YouTube. And we
Hmm.
each got to choose our own word. So my
Yes.
word was trance. So I
Mm.
was shuttled out off the stage, and I was immediately grabbed by the hand by Sam Darius, who
Yeah.
plays Quincy Morris, the character Quincy Morris. Sam
Yeah.
also was in A Grim Night and is just such a lovely artist and human being.
Hmm.
So I was really excited that, oh, this is my sort of like character point of view to
Yeah.
start. So Sam actually took me up in the main hall, up in the balcony area. And as
Hmm.
Quincy, it was very like, okay, the stakes are high, no pun intended, and we need to make sure that all the windows and shutters are shut closed because
Hmm.
there's like this dark cloaked man on the run. And so he basically was
Right.
asking my help to like make sure that the shutters or the curtains were closed. And then he
Hmm.
kind of pulled me sort of like balcony center stage and asked me about like or basically told me like whatever happens tonight, like remember, don't be afraid, and like friends, you have friends, keep reminding
Right.
yourself of that, and ask like, do you believe in the magic of like light? And so it was very, again, it was like, okay, this is cool, I'm
Hmm.
getting the scope into this, what notch in this story this character is sort of representing. So I kind of, it
Hmm.
was interesting like having that be my first foray into the story. Throughout the whole night I was
Hmm.
kind of thinking like, okay, yes, friends, like I had that sort of as like a thesis kind of going
Yes.
into my experience. Yeah, and then I just got welcomed back. I popped sort of back into the space and I went back to the main hall.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's when the mistress of ceremonies started us out, gave us the sort of rules and
Right.
regulations of what the night how the night would unfold.
Hmm.
And we were asked to open up our letter, and depending on what the letter and the message said was where you started. So Mac and I, do you want to read the letter?
I can.
Yeah.
Welcome. I am anxiously expecting you. Please join me in the main hall. Your
Right.
friend, D.
Amazing. So we both, Mac and I, had that same slip, but there were some
Yeah.
folks that were brought down to the basement, some
Hmm.
to the conversation room in the front of the
Yeah.
building. And so that's sort of the beginning of the adventure, is like, we're going to
Yeah.
start you somewhere, but you can choose to leave whenever you want,
Hmm.
to tag
Hmm.
onto a character. Yeah. So we both kind of started there.
Yes, with
And
Jonathan's arrival to meet the Count.
indeed. So the whole thing, so now that we're kind of diving into the experience, the whole thing
Hmm.
was 90 minutes. It cycled through twice. So it was this, whatever the adaptation that they decided upon,
Yeah.
those sort of scene installments cycled
Hmm.
through two times. And just at the end, there was a bit of a different
The
alteration,
climax. Yeah, the
the
climax.
climax to the end of the night
Yeah.
/ the last scene.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything was repeated twice. So again,
Hmm.
part of me kind of forgot that. And I was so excited when they started again, because I happened to be in the main hall when we started again. I was like, okay, right, I've seen this. Now I can like run off
Yeah.
and go and find something
Yeah.
else. Okay, so Mac, why don't you start, map us kind
Sure.
of through what your journey was, and yeah, share like a little tiny
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
interactions you
Okay.
had, if you had
Let's
any.
see here. So you and I both start in the main hall. We see Jonathan and the Count's first interaction, and then Minna and Lucy arrive. They do their scene, and just like in the story, they get caught in the rain and they leave again. And I stuck around, and I think that's when you left because I knew there was the scene with the brides of Dracula and
Mhm.
Jonathan. So I was like, I want to see how they're going to do this scene because you'd already advised me that this was going to be a very sultry show. And I was like, this will be my first indicator of how far they're going to go tonight. And so I stuck around. I saw as I described in the non-spoiler section, this very intimate, once again, sensual but not exploitative sequence with Jonathan and the brides. And then basically once that scene was done, I then left because I watched some of Jonathan's big solo in there, but then I went off and I ended up in the front room, the solarium. And I walked in on the moment when Lucy is being examined because she has been possessed by the Count, because I guess while the bride orgy is going on upstairs, downstairs, as I found out in my second round, is when Lucy and the Count have their meeting and she gets bit.
Right.
So I didn't see that scene till my second time, which is nice. But anyway, so my first time around, I missed the bite scene, but I got to see her possession take place. I then got to see the fight between Renfield and what's the name, Dr. Seward as well. And then I ended up, where did I end up next? I think at that point I ended up downstairs and got to see some of the action with the children. Oh, that's right. It was the children of Dracula and Lucy, and then ultimately Lucy's demise as well. And I loved every time Lucy started to go and become the vampire, the children would show up in whatever scene as they were watching, coming to collect their next friend.
Victim or friend.
Yeah. And then of course Lucy is taken care of. They have to kill her. And then I came upstairs, and that's when I saw Minna and the Count's big duet, which was just beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Is this the one in the front room?
No, this is the one in the main hall.
I actually don't. Oh, wait. At the end?
It's toward the end.
Okay, yes, I believe we saw that.
It's toward the end. It starts off with Jonathan and Minna having their moment. He falls asleep on the daybed, and the Count comes in, and this is when she gets attacked and is forced to suck the Count's blood, which then inters the curse of Dracula. Unless they can kill Dracula, then that will break the curse.
Did you happen to see also their duet in the front room?
No, I missed that one entirely.
I'm briefly gonna slide in a little case study here.
Slide in.
There before, because on my second iteration, I did see that as well, Mac. Their duet after Minna and Jonathan had an intimate moment on the chaise.
Yes.
But prior to that, I earlier on in the sequence of the story, it was almost like Minna was in the front room bedroom area, and Dracula was there, and they were lusting or conjuring each other kind of, but they were never, it was Jack and Kelly, they were never touching, but it was this sexually charged lusting and longing, and again, no actual physicality. So then when you do get to that last scene that you saw, Mac, it was really lovely to see their bodies so grotesquely clashed. Anyways, that was just a great choreography through line. I wanted to get in there.
Yeah, so I saw that sequence, and then basically I ended up back downstairs, and the cycle started again. So then I was like, okay, now let's go see all the other scenes that I had missed. So that's when I got to go downstairs. I got to see the Lucy seduction scene. I got to see, because the first time around I missed a lot of the Seward and Renfield fight that happens in the front room because I couldn't see it. There were too many people.
Right.
So I was like, I want to see that sequence proper. So I was actively keeping an eye, because I was like, okay, I don't need to see the Lucy possession scene again. I've seen that already. So I actually got to go see more of the Renfield story, where the brides come down and visit Renfield in the cage, basically, and the Count shoos them away, and Renfield escapes, and then ends up attacking Seward. And then, of course, then there is Renfield's death as well. That's another major scene that I got to see that I hadn't seen before. I got to see more of the Van Helsing, Seward, Arthur, Homewood, and Quincy Morris stuff this time around. So they have a great kind of band together scene. And then of course they get separated, which is just happens in the book, where the teams all break apart. And I do have to give a shout out to Quincy, who was played by
Sam Darius.
I believe it was Quincy who kills the bride, or no, sorry, it's the person who kills the brides is, let me just go back to my plot description here.
Van Helsing's the one that comes in with the stake at the end, like for
No,
Dracula.
no,
Is that
no,
what you're thinking
different.
of?
Nope, no. This happened downstairs. This happened downstairs with the
Oh,
brides, with the brides, and this was their big comeuppance scene.
okay.
It's who the hell is the perfect? Oh, here we go. Oh wait, sorry, yes, Van Helsing. Yes, so sorry, it is Van
Yeah, so
Helsing.
it was Van
Red
Helsing.
hair. Yes,
Yeah, with
yes,
Ryan Lee is the actor
yes.
who played
Correct,
that. Yeah.
Ryan. Yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, so Ryan had a great scene where it was him versus the brides,
Yeah.
and he ends up sticking them with the cross, and he's trying to save Minna as
Mhm.
well from their grasps as well. So it's like a big 5 part actually, 5 part
Yeah.
dance sequence, beautifully done downstairs. And then, of course, then we all end up back upstairs, and it's the big finale where they ultimately kill Dracula, and Minna, just like in the book, gets to be part of the big climactic battle, and they ultimately vanquish the Count, and the curse is
Yes.
broken. So there's a lot there's a lot more in between scenes that I had missed that
Yeah.
I got to go see the second time around. But Jill, for you, because you and I got to run into
Yeah.
each other a few times, like
Mhm.
kind of like where did you end up the first time around? Because I feel the time
Yeah.
around we had more time running into each other.
I'm not gonna lie. This one, in contrast to Grim Knight. So Grim Knight,
Yeah.
knowing going into that, I was like, I
Hmm.
want to get a good swath of
Yeah.
Cinderella and a good swath
Yes.
of Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. You
So
did
I
a lot
like
more running
really,
around that
I
first
really
time.
made a point, yeah, of running around. This one, knowing that it kind of was just an adaptation of Dracula, I kind of
Hmm.
allowed myself to like free fluidly flow.
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't care to miss certain scenes, but
Hmm.
now having heard your track too, like there are some instances that I didn't catch, but like
Right.
I would be able to pair things together and pretty much assume that that's what was happening in and around
Hmm.
me.
Right.
So I'm not gonna lie, both my tracks through, I know I've gobbled everything excluding the Van Helsing taking down the brides. I missed that
Yeah.
in my 2 times through, and the brides and Jonathan having
Right.
that sort of like orgy dance choral piece. But I'm pretty sure I got a taste of pretty much everything else.
Hmm.
But
Did you get much interaction
overarching the night,
with the children,
yes.
or
So that I'm going to
because
talk
they were
about.
all
So
over? Yeah.
So I had very intimate moments through both of
Hmm.
my tracks. I think this is another reason why I was more focused on like the intimacy and connection with these
Right.
characters than I was about like, let's make sure I see everything.
Hmm.
So I would love to go again to go on the track to see everything. But that's kind of, I think, how I want to talk through my track is
Hmm.
through these
Yeah.
like intimate moments. So
Yeah. Do it
that's
up.
the first thing that popped up for me was after I was in the main hall with you, Mac. We met Dracula,
Hmm.
Jonathan. I kind of lingered around Jonathan for a while. He was writing
Hmm.
letters, which I was lovely. I'm like, okay, great. The letter writing is starting, like that sort of like symbol and
That's a major
homage
part of
to
the
the
book. Yep.
OG part. And then I followed the children. Because again, so the children are played by Tyler Angel,
Hmm.
Dana McDonald, and Sarah McDonald. Apologies if I'm
Yep.
mispronouncing anyone's names.
Yep.
But those 3 folks were in Grim Knight as well. And
Yes.
I
Sarah
loved their
was
work.
Sleeping Beauty or Briar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anywho, I followed them and I'm glad I did. So they took me up to the balcony with this tea tray and
Hmm.
sat me down. And there was one other patron with me, and we had a tea party. And we sat in a circle and we played basically like Stella Ella Ola, but we were spelling out
Cute.
blood, like BLOOD, just getting really fast with it.
Mm.
And then they poured tea, which of course was blood or fruit punch or cranberry juice, whatever they
Yeah.
used. And we were actually able to like take a sip of it. And
Oh.
then me and the other patron were asked to close our eyes and count to 21
Hmm.
and don't open your eyes until you're
Hmm.
done. So we were counting and they were like louder, louder. So we were like counting
Hmm.
really loud, and then we opened our eyes and they were gone. So I was like, okay,
Ah.
that was kind of a cool little interaction. Another awesome intimate interaction I had was with the
Hmm.
vampire brides. So a part of their sort of trio, they each had like an individual solo bit dance piece, and a part of like their trio coming together is they each pulled a chair into the center. So there was 3 chairs,
Hmm.
and then they decided to pick and like enticed a patron to come sit on the chair. So I
Right.
was brought to the chair by Drizella, played by Kayla
Hmm.
Willie, and the 3 brides. This was like such a hypnotic, like honestly relaxing part of the show, because I was just sitting there and they were like dancing
Hmm.
around the chairs in this like hypnotic sort of like burlesque style, and they
Hmm.
were like shrouding sort of like energies over us, like almost like casting a spell, but not touching us. So there was just like this, like, yeah, this shroud of magic and energy. And again, their dancing was astonishing and eye contact. And then there was a part two where like they leaned their heads on our lap. So again, it was like me and two other patrons sort of being in the hot seat, if you will, for this interaction. And then we were again sent off our merry way. Another intimate thing I want to mention is with Tyler Gledhill, who played Arthur Holmwood, and Tyler played Prince Charming in A Grim Night. And hi, Tyler. Tyler was one of the castmates who like reached out to us after we did an episode, and like such a sweet human.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad I got to have this moment. So it was after Lucy's been bitten and sort of has this like outlandish attack, and everyone is kind of up in arms, and Arthur is coming to terms with the fact that he's lost his love. He's lost his wife. Like, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
He was just sort of like having a wallowing moment on a banister. And then he just looked at me, grabbed my hand, and pulled me in for like an intimate sort of just like a step here and there sway sort of waltz-esque dance. And the whole time he pulled me in tight, and I was, like literally dancing with Tyler playing Arthur. He was whispering in my ear this monologue of like, his love is lost, and like, where do I go from here? She used to be an angel. And so it was just lovely to like get that again. And this is a show that doesn't have a lot of verbal text. So like when you do get an iterance of characters saying each other's names or giggling, or there are passages that are said to you intimately, it sort of had like this very weighted special moment, to the point where when he kind of sent me off my merry way, people around me were like, wow, great job. Like good job, like being there for that character. So that was super lovely. I felt honored to have that moment. And there was, so a moment I had with Jack Rennie as Dracula. So I followed him from the main hall all the way down to the basement, and he was just standing at the balcony, basically like overseeing what was happening below. So one of the things that were happening was Mina was in Renfield's cage, and he was really laser focused on the character. So I was also looking, but then I would look at him, and he was really laser focused and just like seething. And I'm just standing next to him on the banister, kind of enraptured in, like, what is going on? What is going on in his mind? What's going on in the character's mind? And then Jack just walked up to me and whispered in my ear, like, that man used to be an ally, and now he's like, he can't be trusted. And again, it was just like having Dracula whisper in your ear was just like, oh my goodness. Like, so that I had, these little sort of intimate vocal moments, and then also movement-y moments that I felt just super, in on everything, and sort of not even just our big characters going on their journeys, but these sort of getting to hear the inner workings and like what the hearts and souls and minds of some of our side characters.
Right.
Also, one of the children, I followed James, played by the other Tyler, in the cast, and he gave me this little flower just as like a fun little thing. Yeah. So you could just tell too, like the actors were just having a ball and a hoot, just sort of building their character's psyche, spiraling it into movement. Again, I pretty much saw everything that you saw, Mac, and mapped out. But then again, it's kind of more a soup in my brain because I was kind of more focused on the intimacy versus the chronology of things.
Right.
One thing I do want to talk about and pay homage and sync us back to, like, the sensuality and sexuality of this piece, like we mentioned about 3 times already, was so well done. And there's even at the final scene, the intimate moment that's happening with Mina and Jonathan, both actors are quite like stripped down to like nude undergarments. And it just was astonishing. It was like, these statuesque characters or actors, and giving us an iteration and interpretation of something that is super sexualized and very grotesque and spooky in such like an elegant and tactful way. It just everything kind of dramaturgically made sense. Again, going to the letters, one of Mina's solo pieces that I got to catch, she walks in with a leathered notebook and a bunch of letters and just drops them into
yes, I saw that piece. Yes, where she was studying things. Yes.
Yeah. And so that was interesting to me too, because if I was following her trajectory, this is where I'm just like, this dramaturgically is brilliant, because if I was following the character's trajectory, I'd probably know whose letters and whose notebooks those were.
Yeah.
But because I was in the main hall and I just stayed there and waited till Kelly Mina came with all of this information, I'd already seen her interact with several folks. So I was like, these notebooks and letters could be Jonathan's that she found or have. They could be Dracula's writings and workings that she's coming like, oh my goodness, I'm trapped with this beast. They could be Renfield's writings and notebooks, which near in her solo piece, she does sort of do like eating bug movements and sort of bug-like movements. But I just love that the fact that you didn't have to know necessarily story-wise, like whose notebooks or whose letters were those. It was just like, this is
I believe
a dancer.
they are Renfield's.
Sure. Yeah. But it's also just like,
if I'm remembering their relationship, because there's a lot of side scenes that I caught briefly of them in the cage together. Remina was going to him. So, and because of Renfield's objective in the story to.
But even like not knowing that and kind of even coming into this experience, like I loved a Grim, like for example, if you were a patron who's like, I loved a Grim Night. I don't know anything about Dracula, but I just want to engulf myself in the story. Again, the fact that paying homage or shouting out again, Kelly Shaw, just being a dancer, an actor, a performer who can just tell a version of a story with these props that are paying homage to the original way that this story is written, is through diary entries and letters. And you don't really know, the characters that are all over the world, and you don't really know, okay, what is it? This must have something to do with this. Like you're kind of tying and threading those things together when you read Dracula. So it was lovely that this immersive theater experience does that for you, you know? Yeah. Wow. Again, we said this with Grim Night, but we could just go on and talking about the intricacies.
There's a lot in here. Like, once again, I wish I had like those new eyeglasses that could record what you're seeing, because
I don't know if those existed.
Oh yeah. Google's got them. Apple's got them. We're like basically, well, it's like a video camera in eyeglasses, right? So basically, you can go back and look through your day, right? So I mean, I wish I could, because there's just so much physicality in this and so many layers that each of these performers bring to their roles, that it's, you can only take in so much in a moment.
Yeah.
But if you want to just isolate one dancer at any given time in a scene and just go, okay, what are you doing specifically in this moment?
Yeah.
You could, I mean, you could have a field day doing the play-by-play to figure all that out.
Definitely. And I would love to be like a fly on the wall or sitting at a seat at the initial table work for a show like this, because again, hats off to Julia for helming this beast of a piece where you constantly have things in motion and you have to make sure the full story is being told, but in different pockets and by different humans. And then layer on top of that, like you're saying, Mac, the specificity of dance, of movement, of text. And, these types of shows are massive undertakings, but like some of the most brilliant work that we get the privilege of seeing here in Toronto. For folks who haven't seen a TranscenDance Project or are more interested in kind of the flavor of what we're talking about, if you have seen No More in like New York, or
very much
a type of theatrical immersive experience that it is very much along those lines. So so we need more of that happening in Toronto. So
agreed, Jill.
We want to see more.
Give us some more.
Yeah. So on that note, I think we can wrap things up. Again, this episode is
fly
going
out
out
like a bat out of hell.
Hey, it's going out, leaving you only Saturday's opportunity to catch the show. But please grab a ticket if you still can.
Please.
Hopefully they continually bring this piece back, because I also think it's something that I would love to see several times to go on different journeys and different
100%.
tracks. So so it's happening at the Great Hall here in Toronto, going on now until February 24th. And directed and choreographed by Julia Cratchley, music composed by Owen Belton, and the star-studded cast that we've chatted about. So we will pop information down below. Follow TranscenDance Project on Instagram too, because they're always amazing with their marketing materials and giving tidbits of what they have upcoming. So
some of their trailers alone are just beautiful pieces of
stunning.
art.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. Great. So on that note, Mac, where can folks find and follow you?
They can follow me at Mackenzie Horn on all social media platforms. You can follow my musical antics over at Before the Downbeat, a musical podcast. We will not be covering Dracula the musical anytime soon, as that is a very mixed bag of a show that definitely it was not well received and is not, fondly remembered. So I'm much more happier talking about this version of Dracula than the Broadway musical version that was done with Des McAnuff a few years ago. So this is much better. Go see this.
Nice.
This is much, much better.
Great.
But there you go. Jill, where can people find and follow you?
Yes, great. So you can follow me at my artist Instagram account at Jillian.Robinson96. You'll see any upcoming projects I might have down the lines, covers of songs.
Right.
Just follow me if you'd like. But also, more importantly, you should follow Cup of Hemlock Theatre.
Right.
So if you are watching us on YouTube, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment below. We are on social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And yeah, we love doing what we do, Mac. This is really fun.
Do.
Like every episode is great, but it takes these being able to do these duet reviews for companies that are just give such rich performances. It's a pleasure. So thank you for listening. Everyone, stay safe. Remember that you have friends and believe in the magic of light, like Quincy told me in my pre-show.
That's right.
We will catch everyone on the next episode of The Cup. Cheers.
Next episode. Bye.
Bye.